mathematicians, it's Justin again. Mia's Aunt Twyla stopped by to help us clean up after the bake sale. Now we're trying to figure out how much of each baked treat we have left. Check out the leftover pie. Ooh, my favorite. This one was cut into 10 equal pieces, and now there are 3 pieces left. Mia says there's this amount of pie left over, but Twyla says there's this amount left. Are these the same? I think we need to learn more about how decimals and fractions are related to help us figure out who's right. By the end of today's lesson, you'll be able to explain how fractions and decimals are similar, convert between decimals and fractions, and figure out if a fraction is in simplest form. Have your guided notes ready? And let's get into it. We already know a lot about fractions and decimals, so hopefully that can help us figure out if these numbers represent the same value. We know that a fraction is a number that represents a piece or part of a whole, and that a decimal is a number that represents a piece or part of a whole with a decimal point. Okay, so fractions and decimals are actually pretty much the same, but I wonder if there are any similarities in the way we read fractions and decimals, or how we represent each with a visual model. Pause the video here to show each number with a visual model and in word form in your guided notes. Do you notice any similarities? Both the fraction and the decimal can be represented by shading 3 out of 10 equal parts of a whole, and both are read as 3/10. They represent the exact same amount. So, who was correct? Mia or Twyla? Both of them are right. 3/10 of a pie as a fraction is the same as 3/10 as a decimal. Decimals and fractions are 2 different ways of showing the same number. But how can that be true? Well, both represent parts of a whole. Fractions use numerators and denominators, while decimals use place value to show the same amount in a different way. So that must mean that if we only have a decimal, we could also show it as a fraction. Here's all the sheet cake we have left. We started with a whole cake cut into 10 pieces, and now we have 9 pieces left over. Here's our cake represented as a decimal. How do we read this decimal? 9/10. And that's our fraction too. 9 pieces of cake out of 10, or 9/10. Every decimal we see can be written as a fraction. The numerator tells us how many parts we have, in this case 9, and the denominator tells us how many total parts make up the whole, in this case 10. 9/10. So how can we use what we know to show a decimal to the hundredths place as a fraction, like this one? This decimal represents 25 hundredths, which means we could show it as a fraction that has a numerator of 25 and a denominator of 100. Pause the video here to practice converting decimals to fractions in your guided notes. Check your work against mine. Did you get the same answers? If not, think about which place the decimal ends in. That can help you figure out your denominator. Like 70 hundredths. We can write that with the numerator 70 and the denominator 100. It's also 7/10? Mathematicians, check this out. How can 70 hundredths and 7/10 represent the same value? Pause here to record your thinking in your guided notes. Notice how 70 divided by 10 is 7 and 100 divided by 10 is 10? Mia found an equivalent fraction and simplified her answer. She represented the fraction with the smallest numbers possible. That means 70 hundredths, the decimal, 70 hundredths, the fraction, and 7/10ths, the fraction, all represent the same value. Give it a try for yourself. How can we show this decimal as a fraction? It's 2/10ths. So we have a 2 for our numerator and a 10 for our denominator. Can this fraction be simplified? Think about what we can divide the numerator and denominator by to simplify this fraction. Pause here to record your thinking in your guided notes. Two and 10 are both even, so we can divide 2 by 2, which equals 1. And 10 divided by 2 equals 5. That means 2/10ths, the decimal, 2/10ths, the fraction, and 1/5 the fraction all represent the same value. Even when fractions are simplified to their lowest terms, they still represent the same decimal value. So we know how to convert decimals to fractions. Can we go the other way? Converting a fraction to a decimal is similar to converting a decimal to a fraction. Try it out. If we have 23 out of 100 cookies left, how can we represent that as a decimal? Think about how to say this fraction. It's 23 hundredths, right? So we can show that as a decimal with a 0 decimal point 23 hundredths. Pause the video here to practice converting a few more fractions to decimals in your guided notes. Here we have the fraction 8/10ths, which we show with a 0 in the ones place, a decimal point, and an 8 in the tenths place. And the fraction 36 hundredths is represented in decimal form with the digit 0, a decimal point, and 36 hundredths. It's really that simple when the fraction has a denominator of 10 or 100. But that's not always the case, like with our leftover banana bread. We have 4/5 of a loaf of banana bread left. How can we show 4/5 as a decimal? Well, we know our decimal place values are tenths and hundredths. Is there a way to find an equivalent fraction to 4/5 that has a denominator of 10? Oh yeah! 5 times 2 equals 10, so we can multiply the numerator by 2 to find the equivalent fraction 8/10ths. We then show that as the decimal 0 decimal point 8. What about our leftover muffins? We've got 12 out of 25 left. How can we change that to a fraction with a denominator of 100? Pause here to record your thinking in your guided notes. Remember, there are 4 quarters in a dollar, so 25 times 4 is 100. We can multiply the numerator and denominator by 4 to get 48 hundredths. Now we can convert our fraction to a decimal. 48 hundredths is 0, decimal point 48. Great work, mathematicians. So, what have we learned today, besides the fact that Mia, Twyla, and I have a lot of leftover baked treats to eat? Well, now you know that decimals and fractions are 2 different ways to show the same number. You've learned how to convert decimals to fractions and fractions to decimals. Simplified fractions still represent the same value as the decimal amount, and if a fraction doesn't have a denominator of 10 or 100, you can find an equivalent fraction that does. Be sure to complete the practice questions and extension activities that go with this lesson to practice converting decimals and fractions. And remember, mathematicians, in math, as in life, every effort adds to your success. I'll see you next time.